What is going on, everybody? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be doing a 3-round mock draft with trades split up into 2 days, just like the NFL draft. This is my first 3-rounder of the year, so if you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe to that fun YouTube jazz. The links are below my face and below my board below that. So we love that. Let's get right into this. Let's have some fun. We're on the way to 10K. Would love to be able to get there by the end of the year, but if we don't, who cares? We're having fun, right? Thank y'all again for all the support y'all have shown me, because this past weekend I was over doing job interviews and such. Does that change whether we're going to be continuing the show after? Hell no. This is my passion project. This is something I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, so don't worry about that. We're going to be doing this damn near every single day for possibly the rest of my life. So love it. Let's get excited. Let's get into this. Starting out with the number 1 overall selection. This is the current draft order. And yeah, I have a no trades mock draft, 2 rounds in 1 video as of yesterday, so feel free to check that out as well. Looking at what we can do here, I want to see, was there anything? I don't think there's a massive shift. Yeah, there's no massive shift in the draft order based on last night's game, but we are going to be trading out of this number 1 overall spot. So yes, below my face is my board. Feel free to rip it apart all you want. There's still going to be definitely edits that I will be making over time. That's the whole entire fun thing about showing my board, is that y'all can see what transitions over time. So this number 1 pick, though, we are trading it away. We are going to say that Caleb Williams does come out, because I still think that he is the number 1 pick. He's had a lot of struggles lately, and I can't put this better than the NFL Stock Exchange from PFF, so shout out to those guys. They said he's not situation proof, and that's okay. I mean, not many quarterbacks are situation proof. They were talking about how Trevor Lawrence was situation proof until they saw him go with Urban Meyer, right? So again, every quarterback's going to be situation proof. Caleb Williams is not the Lord himself. I mean, hell, Patrick Mahomes probably wouldn't be the same with Matt Eberflus as he would with Andy Reid, right? So it's understandable for sure. Therefore, we want Caleb Williams to go to the best situation possible. Or if we're the Bears, just put him in a situation that is not going to be facing us very often. So when you're looking at it, I prioritize the teams that are in the AFC. It makes sense, right? If Caleb Williams ends up being a god, you only have to face him if you both make the playoffs in the Super Bowl rather than in the regular season or other portions of the playoffs. So this is a live mock draft as well. Feel free to put in your opinions. But looking at the teams that could be jumping up to that number 1 overall spot, of course, there's going to be these teams that are in the same division as the Bears who are going to try to vie for it. But I think it really comes down to New England, definitely the Giants, and then right here, we got 4, 5, and 6. That's who's going to be calling. I don't think any other team is within strikeable range. I don't think any other team has the capital, unless, again, if I end up going with the Raiders going Max Crosby, right? I think that wouldn't be an awful idea, but we'll table that for another day. So looking at the situations where I think Caleb would be super successful, I really do like New York. I do. The question is, if you're the Bears, who's going to give you the best long-term returns? I think it's going to be the Broncos, because they're going to need a couple more years to build everything. And when you're facing Patrick Mahomes consistently, you're facing Herbert as well, and then, the Raiders are the Raiders. But you need a superstar quarterback to really compete with the superstar quarterbacks that you're facing 2 times a year. And again, I think they're going to need 2 to 3 years to properly build out for Caleb Williams. It may be like a Justin Fields timetable, but I think it's the right move for both franchises if Denver wants to be successful. And the thing is, for the Bears, they have plenty of picks in this year's draft. The Broncos are going to be, unfortunately, giving up their early picks. And, we might be able to trade some players away. We are going to. They don't include 2026 picks in this, but let's assume, we toss in a 2026 second-round pick, right? And, in return, we could get Patrick Surtain here for sure. I'm going to let y'all do that type of negotiating. Maybe not. I kind of like doing the negotiating myself here. But looking at it, like, really the guy who I'm most excited about is Patrick Surtain. Other players that could be on the table, wide receiver wise, I do think that you could be the one who benefits from Jerry Jeudy. Marvin Mims has proven to be very, very, very talented. Besides that, I don't really see anything else that's really exciting to trade for because Javonte Williams doesn't make any sense. You have some really good running backs who are very complementary. You could end up getting, actually, Garrett Bowles is on the trade block. So he actually is a really good target for y'all. We're going to toss him in because I just don't think that we're going to viably get away with going after Patrick Surtain. And I don't think this team needs it. Resign Jalen Johnson. He's a beast. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Broncos going to give a 1-2, 1-3, and maybe a 2, as well as Garrett Bowles. Maybe the Bears end up coughing up a future third-round pick. Again, that's not going to affect this mock draft, but for the time being, that's exactly what's going to happen. The Bears then also solved their left tackle problem with a very quality veteran left tackle. I don't think Braxton Jones is bad by any stretch, but that is a legitimate upgrade, and you have the money to do it. If Garrett Bowles wants to succeed, this is a team that's, a coaching shift and maybe a couple pieces away from being legitimately extremely talented. But regardless, maybe Garrett Bowles will still be pissed on a team that maybe is not a Super Bowl competitor, but you still have picks 3 and 4, and that's where you want to be. Caleb Williams is the number 1 overall selection here. Again, this is a guy that you need in this type of division. You need a superstar, and that's exactly what Caleb Williams is going to be. I always have this rule. If Caleb Williams comes out, Shedeur doesn't. It's kind of the 2 switch, and I know it's not equal by any stretch, but I did end up having, a no Caleb Williams mock draft just a little bit over a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. So feel free to check that out as well. If he ends up losing again this week, we're really going to be starting to hammer home on the no Caleb Williams mock drafts because, there was going to be significant in terms of competition. There's going to be a significant drop off in terms of quarterback talent after this year. So it is likely, but as of now, Caleb Williams is still going to be that number 1 overall selection. At this pick, Marvin Harrison Jr. is almost impossible to pass on, but I just don't feel like it's the biggest need for the Cardinals to go after a wide receiver at this point. I have seen that there have been teams that are calling for Hollywood Brown. No real reception in that regard. I do feel like this team should be willing to leverage its draft capital, though, for a team that wants to move up. Because I do think this team has bigger issues. They have a lot of bigger fish to fry than getting Marvin Harrison Jr. here. And this receiving class is extremely deep. And I just don't think wide receiver is the biggest hole. Now, it sounds ludicrous, but I've always gone wide receiver at number 2 for the Cardinals. I always have. If they're there and there's Marvin Harrison on the board, they're going after him. But in this situation, I really want to see, because we do have plenty of picks, but this team needs a lot to be consistent. And I'm looking at a team, I think New England Patriots wouldn't be a bad spot for Drake May. He has 2, I don't want to say this because it does sound like I'm kind of taking a shot at Bill Belichick. He almost is too much of a playmaker, is too risk-seeking for the Patriots offense. They don't have enough weapons. And by doing this, I'd absolutely cripple their draft capital. But a team that would be a really good fit is the Giants. And at this point, the Cardinals are saying, well, there's no other teams within strikeable distance that really want to move up to this spot. And if you're able to move back to 5, you're still able to get elite players. And I don't know if this requires a 1-2-1, for example. I think for the Giants in this instance, I'm going to opt for a 1-3-1. You guys could do the negotiating on the other future picks here, because this will affect this mock draft, right? They're going to be the 69th. Nice pick. That's going to be here for the Cardinals. And we'll have multiple third-round picks, kind of similar to what we did this year. And, maybe toss in a future 4th. Yada, yada. Could get a player in there as well, maybe. But for the time being, the Giants need one massive addition. And that's, besides right tackle, that's going to be quarterback. That's why I kept that number 37 overall pick. I want potential draft capital to move up for a right tackle. Drake May is going to be the selection here, though. We have 2 trades in the top 2. Is that likely? Probably not. But at the same time, you do see the ceiling. There's a big gap between Drake May and even a guy who I have above him in Bo Nix. I do have Bo Nix above him by 1 spot. They're essentially tied. But they're totally different styles of quarterback. I think Bo Nix wouldn't be far more effective in this system than Daniel Jones would be. Maybe he has 10% more. And maybe that could equate to more wins. But Drake May has that ceiling where he can get 30, 40% more in terms of his return on investment. So That's just going to be the difference that these guys make if they hit. If they don't, that's a different story. But this team has a ton of potential. So Drake May for the Giants. Yeah, there's a lot of money tied up there, but if Cardinals fans and everybody was saying that Caleb Williams was going to go to the Cardinals with Kyler Murray there and all the money that he's owed, don't begin to try to justify the money for the Daniel Jones side. It's a good counter argument, but it's not a reason to fully pass. Bears, we're going to be getting Marvin Harrison here. Obviously, he can't fall out of the top 3. Again, Arizona could have taken him, but I just want to go a different route for Arizona. The Bears, we already got a ton of draft capital as it is, so we'll see what happens. I don't think that Brock Bowers should be out of the question. We already got a left tackle in Garrett Bowles, and I don't think it's a bad idea, because I do think if you want to equip Justin for success, again, we're re-signing Jalen Johnson in this situation. It's pretty much edge rusher and tight end that we need, and I know we're going to get a good edge rusher in round number 2. I do. And you know what? Let's test it out. Let's have some fun. Brock Bowers and Marvin Harrison. That sounds a lot of overkill, right? For example, you got DJ Moore there. Now you have DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers, Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet, really not a name that's remotely close to the gravitas of DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison, and Brock Bowers. However, Brock could be your elite slot weapon. DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison on the outside. What you want to do is equip your franchise for success. You have pretty much a $30 million a year player in Marvin Harrison Jr. that you have on a rookie contract for 5 years. You have Brock Bowers, who's going to be essentially Travis Kelce, who, he should be making $25, $30 million a year. But let's just say 20, right? You have pretty much $50 million on your roster right now. Elite top tier play. And then you have DJ Moore too. So ultimately, this is another prove it for Justin year, but you also have a true left tackle that is a god tier left tackle. Braxton Jones can fit in at guard because we need help on the interior of the offensive line. I know that center is a bigger priority, but we can fix that as well. This is a way that you're setting up your franchise for success. Big playmakers is exactly how you're going to succeed. If DJ Moore gets mad about that, which he won't, because DJ Moore doesn't have that personality, that's a bridge we'll cross when we get there. But DJ Moore was essentially free with that trade back. Regardless, we end up getting 2 superstars here for the Bears. At pick number 5, we traded back. And this would have been a good spot for Brock Bowers as well. Yeah, we take out 2 of the most elite weapons in the class. But you know what? This class in corner-wise is not absolute butt cheeks. That's a complete overstretch. But it is extremely limited. I don't think Cooper DeJean's a talented corner. He's not a polished corner. I don't think he's able to step in the NFL day one and be a good corner. I think that he's going to be an elite tier safety, maybe a top 10 safety in the NFL, top 10 maybe slot corner that could be very physical, and then maybe a top 10 returner, even a top tier wide receiver. I do think he'd be a good addition on this team. Not at pick number 5. I think Kool-Aid McKinstry fits exactly what you're looking for. He's my standard go-to. I know I talked to I don't want to go back to Marvin Harrison, but at the same time, we just acquired future first-round pick, future third-round pick. Well, actually, this year, third-round pick as well. Look how many picks we have. Cardinals fans, enjoy. This is not a very good corner class, but you end up moving back. You lose Marvin Harrison, but you get Kool-Aid McKinstry, and I can guarantee you a talented player in the third. That's essentially what you have to pay, the price that you have to pay in order to, be able to snag some good receivers down the board. I can guarantee you this team is not dying because they don't have a Marvin Harrison Jr. They're dying because there's holes, legitimate holes everywhere. And this is step 1 towards making this team legitimately formidable. K1 is a beast. He can make do with what y'all have, and he definitely will. At pick number 6, so the real question is, do you want Olu Fashanu here, or do you want a quarterback like Bo Nix? And I'm looking at a team like Minnesota here, and they're certainly hungry for a quarterback. And, J.J. McCarthy, I think, would be a really good selection for this team at the end of the first. So I'm going to try to take a different route here. I'm going to try to think what Bill Belichick might want to do. And I do know he values the offensive line. Olu Fashanu just came off his worst week. 4 pressures allowed versus JT. Why did he do that? He has a poorer anchor. That's always been the case. And also young tackles, it's very tough to maintain your mechanical control when you're getting shoved back by a dude who's 270 pounds, moving at you at full speed, right? So for me, I think this is one of the better spots. There's not a ton of pure power rushers that you're going to be facing in this division. Don't get me wrong, they have power. But the guys like Myles Garrett that can drive you back into the quarterback on a daily basis, like on a rep by rep basis. I don't see that in this division. This is one of the spots where I really believe Olu Fashanu is going to succeed. And I always go QB now for the Patriots early on. We're going to be going Olu Fashanu. So at pick number 7, I do think a quarterback should be on the board for this team. I do. The Packers do need it. But I'm going to opt against that for the time being because of the fact that, you know what, we might be able to snag one later. There's some good quarterbacks in this class. There are not a ton of talented left tackles in this class. And with David Bakhtiari being in the state that he is, i.e. pretty much a merchant, well, that's a poor term. He's pretty much a buddy of the medical staff because he's on IR the whole time. And it's unfortunate because his talent is through the roof. But Joe Alt is just consistent. That's what you kind of need. So Joe Alt is going to be the pick here. Also, I know myself, and I know that I'm going to like to draft offensive tackle early and often. And there's going to be quarterbacks there in round number 2. I can guarantee you there's not going to be tackles. At pick number 8 for the Vikings, quarterback, I think, is an excellent move for this team. I'm trying to see if there's any players that teams should move up for. I did this in yesterday's mock draft. I passed on a quarterback round number 1. And I think there might be a rush on quarterback late 1. So Bo Nix has been the most consistent quarterback through and through. Michael Penix just had a 270-yard, 2 interceptions, 0 touchdown game. Bo Nix hasn't had one of those yet. And he's gone up against some good defenses for sure. So Bo Nix is the most consistent. I think Michael Penix is the better play here. If you don't get Michael Penix, then, looking at other options, Quinn Ewers is a good option for this team. You got Joe Milton there as a potential round 2 target for y'all. Like, there are really good choices here. But I'm also seeing a top-tier corner that is here on the board. And there is a drop-off after Kalen King. Again, Cooper DeJean, I believe, is a slot/safety. And he's going to be a really damn good one. So don't get me wrong. I'm not crapping on him. I'm looking at a true boundary corner here. And that's Kalen King. And I think it would be a really good choice for the Vikings to go after Kalen King. However, I do think they'll value quarterback extremely highly. And I think I want Kalen King to come off the board. There is a big drop-off after Kalen King. The next guy I have is Denzel Burke. And again, you're dropping from, 11 down to 22, which is not that big of a drop. But it still is sizable. And it's worth moving up for. And you know who needs a corner? Team at number 9. But you know who also needs a corner? Their division rival at number 12. So I'm sorry to my Chargers fans, but the Raiders, they also need it. They do. And it's going to cost a 3rd-round pick, maybe a future 4th. You can do your own negotiating because this won't be part of this mock draft. And we are going to be moving up with the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to be moving down with Minnesota Vikings, up with the Raiders. A 3rd-round pick is worth a middle finger to your own division. And Kalen King is a very talented corner. Yeah, he got eaten up a bit by Marvin Harrison Jr. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. At the end of the day, he eats up everybody. Kalen King's one of the best at least being relevant in the play. So, love him on that. I also love the fact that he's very aggressive, very assertive in the run game. He's going to be a great addition to this team. So, again, 3rd-round pick, yeah, there's a lot of needs that we need to fill up. But also, we do have the choice of trading back and acquiring extra draft capital that way. So, remain calm. There's also free agency, too, which we've been able to snag as a franchise, some pretty good corners from free agency. So, there is that. But Kalen King is going to be your longer-term option. Again, it would have been probably the move I went for the Chargers. So, now that I'm sitting here with the Chargers, I do think that Cooper DeJean would be an intriguing option. You can use him as a free. Even though he's going to play like a strong, you're kind of going to get 2 Darwins back there. That'd be really intriguing. And then you could put him on the boundary if, someone gets hurt. I like that idea because I always go defensive interior. And the only other position I'd potentially target is edge rusher at this point. So with that being said, let's get the jack of all trades. Let's get the Swiss Army knife here in Cooper DeJean. Again, he's going to be a defensive back, going to be probably fitting in for a Alohi Gilman. He can also work in the slot, which is a big plus. You have that versatility, and he's an instant day 1 returner, and you could potentially try him out as a receiver. We'll see what happens there. At pick number 10 for the Titans. Also, honestly, another team that would have went after Cooper DeJean. I would be fully all down for it. Looking at the players who are on the board, ooh, Talise Fuaga, like that's intriguing because he's my number 3 player in the class. I do think he's generational talent. I don't see very many, especially right tackles, that come out as polished and as athletic as him. There's also a solid amount of right tackles in this class. I will admit that. But we're looking at the next best left tackle. Graham Barton, a lot of people, including myself, do feel like he is going to be a interior offensive lineman at the next level. But we have 3 right tackles, no left tackles left. We got Kingsley Suamatea. That's the next left tackle. I'm not taking him here at 10. The real question is, do you trust Nicholas Petit-Ferrer to move back to left tackle, which was the position he played at Ohio State the year he was drafted? That was an intriguing year. But he's been honestly pretty serviceable. I think I'd be willing to take this risk. I would be. So I'm going to do it. I think that his talent level is through the roof. Now, there is the potential risk of, we could end up trying to trade for Evan Neal. But since the Giants did not go after offensive tackle, they're going to try him out one more year. Therefore, we do not get the ability to get Evan Neal in this mock draft, but Talise Fuaga is the choice. You could try him at left tackle. You could, because he's still developing. Like, there still is the ability to put him there. But I'd probably take the proven talent who's played years in the Big Ten at left tackle, put him back to left tackle. Talise Fuaga is too good to pass on. This team does rely on the run game. This guy's a pancake machine, the most athletic offensive lineman in terms of speed and power that I've ever seen. Y'all know how much I've loved Talise Fuaga. Glad to see others are coming onto the hype train. At pick number 11 for the Saints, a lot of really, really good choices here. And honestly, this is a franchise that I'd personally want to move back. We don't even have our 3rd round selection. We technically don't have our 2nd either. So, like, when looking at guys like Keon Coleman on the board, there's also the quarterbacks like Bo Nix on the board. I'd be very intrigued. And you can see a team like the Jets getting aggressive here. You could see a team even like the Falcons or the Buccaneers trying to get aggressive here. I'm not going to see that necessarily. I could see Washington get a little bit excited for a short-range trade and, test out another style of quarterback. I still believe in Sam Howell. I do. This team has too many holes on it for my liking personally. So, unfortunately, I'm not seeing a team that, besides maybe the Jets, would be over the moon about moving up for a quarterback. You could see the Seattle Seahawks, which I've continuously said have almost no holes, being a really good team to trade up in this range. But I might just wait here. So let's see a team that might want to move up for a wide receiver. You got Keon Coleman on the board, and some team's going to want a true number 1 wide receiver. I'm just not seeing it. I think that we were going to try to trade back, try to see if there was some good synergy there. There was not. And you know what? They're going to look at every team that said, hey, we don't want to move up for a quarterback, and be like, you know what? If we have to sit here, let's get our best value here. Bo Nix is essentially a better version of Derek Carr. It's a system fit right away. Again, he's been the most consistent quarterback in college so far, and he's going to be a good addition. Nonetheless, he is going to be a good addition. I wanted to trade back there. Didn't get anybody that was willing to bite. But Michael Penix is going to be the selection at pick number 12, even though he had his little stumble. We've seen what he can do with a full array of weapons, and you know what? I'm all for seeing Michael Penix throw it 50 yards downfield to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. So Michael Penix Jr., good selection right there. At pick number 13, this is where I kind of want to move back. I don't really vibe with this pick very much. I don't really like this spot for the Colts. It's not high enough for a good DB, apart from, maybe a safety. And I don't want to take a safety here. I'm assuming that they're going to end up bringing back their beloved Michael Pittman Jr., which is the Keon Coleman role. So for me, I'm stuck at this point looking at a team to trade back to. And I do see a team that is kind of greedy because they don't have many holes. They could fit in a quarterback here and there. But they also have a couple teams in front of them in their own division that are looking for defensive interior. I'm talking about the Seattle Seahawks here. And this is a perfect range for the Colts to move back and still get a talented corner or a nice interior offensive lineman. It's a good range for them. And the Seahawks have this selection from New Orleans. I'm forgetting for who. But regardless, I am still going to be sending this pick away. Now, the cost of it, does it require a 2nd round pick? It should. It really should. I'm going to say it does for the Seahawks. And to be fair, they don't really need much. Maybe it'll cost even a future 4. Like, again, you do your negotiating on the future picks, right? But this is kind of a massive move for the Seahawks to jump 2 in-division rivals that will be looking for defensive interior choices. And yeah, there's some top-tier edge rushers on the board, but there really is 2 top-tier interior defensive linemen besides Christian Jenkins, who's a really top-tier interior defensive lineman for run defense. I'm going to go Jerzon Johnny Newton here. Dude, I think had 8 or 10 pressures this past week too. Big tip of my cap to Jerzon Newton. I would love for him to be a little bit more consistent rather than going like 2 or 1 pressure up to 8, yada yada. But regardless, he still is consistently dominant, just not on the stat sheet. Pick number 14. This is going to be an edge rusher. Chase Young on the chop block. And you know what? That is A-okay. Because there are some really good edge rushers here. Jared Verse is up to 260. You got Braylon Trice. You got JT Tuimalau. Like, there are some really, really good edge rushers in this class. I'm going to go Jared Verse. He struggled a little bit this past week, so it's a reason he could legitimately be here. He struggled a little bit against Graham Barton. And Graham Barton's not the best tackle because, again, I said he should be an interior offensive lineman. But Jared Verse is going to be a great choice here. For the Rams, it's going to be Leonard Taylor, or I might even go Graham Barton here. Again, that game versus Jared Verse really has boosted his draft stock. Again, he's not like he stonewalled him. Like, let's get that straight. But the fact is, he can play left tackle against a top-tier edge rusher and succeed. But more importantly, he has versatility over every position in the offensive line. And I think this Rams team is going to continue to look to build core pieces. And Graham Barton being able to fill everywhere, especially when injuries start piling up, is kind of key. And the center role, definitely something that he could do. It's really high for an interior offensive lineman to go at this point, but I do think they'll try him out at left tackle and then move him around. I've gone these other positions so many times, and like, I guess I can move back here. I do see that there are some teams that could be looking for Keon Coleman. That is fair. I don't feel like we should take this pick. I'm going to look at a team to move back and select Keon Coleman. And when looking at the right teams, I'm looking at a team that might want to replace Mike Evans here in the Buccaneers. And I actually really like that move too. You could say send him to the Bengals for T. Higgins, but I've done that every single time. And that's why it's going to be fun. We're going to use this pick. It's going to cost a 3rd round pick to move back. And you know what? The Rams can use it. The Buccaneers don't have a ton of holes. And this is a really good time to get your contingency plan there in place, keeping Keon there in Florida. Pick number 16. Defensive interiors, the way I want to go here. Leonard Taylor is a beast. I just want to go after the run stuffing ability of Chris Jenkins, and he still is an elite pass rusher in my opinion. Like, if you want to get someone who could just be pure meat, you go T'Vondre Sweat. But T'Vondre Sweat's been a good pass rusher too. I do think Chris Jenkins is your best bang for your buck. Leonard Taylor, he's going to be your best bang for your buck if you want pretty much someone who could take over a game. But he's not necessarily the run defender that Chris Jenkins is. Chris Jenkins will make a play on all 3 to 4 downs. Leonard Taylor can make it probably on 2 to 3 of those downs. And maybe that 1 down of difference is what you're looking for. And that can be what makes the difference. So you got extra 1st round pick. You got an extra 3rd round pick. And you got Kool-Aid McKinstry and Chris Jenkins. Pretty solid. Pick number 17. I do think offensive tackle is probably the biggest thing to go for this team. Marius Mims, J.C. Latham, going to be the biggest guys to target. Now, other positions of note, I do think wide receiver is a position you should go for. However, this is a deep wide receiver class. This is a thin offensive tackle class. I am not a fan of Patrick Paul at the moment. I'm actually going to restudy him after this video just to double check because I studied him. I was like, dude, this guy's butt cheeks. Going to be 100 with y'all. Like, this guy's not good. However, people still believe in him. He's still performing well, even though, I mean, I think SMU is playing Houston sometime this year. Maybe, well, they're not going to play him at home because last year was our super game where our quarterback threw 10 touchdowns and they threw 7 against us. Regardless, Patrick Paul, you know, I guess I don't get to see him in person this year. However, I just don't see it. I don't. Regardless, the thing this team needs is a right tackle. And I've gone J.C. Latham for him multiple times. I'm going to go Amarius Mims this time. J.C. Latham, I do have my potential personality concerns with him giving up early on reps. So there certainly is that. For the Bengals, I'm actually going to look at wide receiver here still. Even though I think Keon Coleman is the perfect guy to replace T. Higgins, I honestly think Emeka Egbuka, he's not necessarily going to be a day one impact in that exact role because he plays primarily in the slot. That's Tyler Boyd's role. But he does play on the outside. I think Rome Odunze could be technically the better option for the Bengals. However, I'm not going to send y'all another first-round Washington wide receiver. Both of them are great. Then you got Emeka Egbuka there. And then you're also keeping him in Ohio. So that's also pretty damn cool. Sending him to a former Ohio State quarterback there in Joe Burrow. Pick number 19 for the Rams. I just talked about this earlier. Let's go Graham Barton. We ended up getting a third-round pick out of it as well. Graham Barton is the selection. Also, it is a way in case, some teams, especially in the NFC, there are some interior offensive line needs, i.e. the Niners in your own division. And Graham Barton's a guy who I always like to take there. Pick number 20. Debating J.J. McCarthy at this pick because I do think that's one of the final pieces on this team. And I do think it's a very good position to target. The question is, are y'all going to spend a first-round pick on it? Oh, that's the tough question. That is the tough question. You know what? We're going to. I like J.J. McCarthy more than I like Desmond Ridder. So, you know what? I think he's going to be an upgrade. This team already is kind of loaded everywhere else. Edge rusher, we can always get that later on. I was planning on moving up with some teams to get J.J. McCarthy, i.e. the Patriots. But at the same time, the Patriots aren't necessarily the most giddy for going up to draft quarterbacks. Pick number 21 for the Bills. Still some elite level talents on the board, including, my number 5 player. But again, I blend my board with realism. That's why I take other wide receivers above Johnny. But number 7, number 10, number 12, we do have some top 10 players who are still available. Now, the question is, you just saw the Patriots get their own star tackle. Do we want to move back and draft the guy who just gave him his worst game? Something you got to discuss. I do think it's potentially worth it. I am, however, going to address the offensive line because also other teams in the division very well might want to address offensive line. That's just the God honest truth. So J.C. Latham will be the selection for the Bills. Pick number 22 for the Cowboys. Wide receiver and probably tackle are going to be the two positions I want to target the most. You do have some really solid corners on the board as well. The corners are good. They are good. Denzel Burke could be a good option for this team. I don't know if the value is going to be there in round number 2 the way that I want it to. And I do have Denzel Burke still above Dwight McLaughlin. And to be fair, it would be nice not to use a placeholder value this early in the first round. But I think Denzel Burke's the guy I want to go with. He flashed in his true freshman year. He stumbled in his sophomore year, but he got back to where he kind of was. And then he's been pretty damn stellar this year as well. So I'm actually going to go Denzel Burke here. We're going to change it up. I haven't gone corner for the Cowboys in a hot minute. Pick number 23 for the Steelers. Let me just go Chop Robinson at this point. I mean, hell, Dallas Turner. This is ridiculous. I think the Steelers should honestly move back at this point. Looking at it, right tackle is a position I would want the most. Not available. Kingsley Suamataia would be interesting because you'd have to kick him back to right tackle. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea, but I don't know if that's what the Steelers are going to do. So I also think Chukwuma Okorafor, it's weird. I see a lot of potential with that guy in terms of continue to develop him. I just wish he put it all together because there's just so much potential there. But we still have some elite players on the board. Again, we got Leonard Taylor. We got some top-tier edge rushers. I love Chop Robinson. Got some elite-level receivers too. The thing is, Leonard Taylor is still on the board, and I think this is a perfect time for a short-range trade with a team that's looking for a defensive interior. And right now, I'm talking Detroit all day. Detroit's going to make a short-range trade. I think we'll end up sending 72 and getting back 123. It's a very small range trade, so that's why both sides are going to essentially give up draft capital. But I feel like the Lions could have some depth pieces, in their corner room, etc. But at number 23, we need to get some extra help there. for our beloved Aiden Hutchinson, and Leonard Taylor is exactly going to be that. At pick number 24, a team that would have been great for Leonard Taylor, we have the Texans. Now, I don't think edge rusher is a position you guys need to target, but Dallas Turner pairing back up with Will Anderson, again, he's my number 7 player. Like, that just sounds too good to be true. It's weird that you're in a spot right now where you're spending a luxury pick, even though not necessarily needing to spend a luxury pick. You're not even in a position to where luxury is where you should go. But the potential upside of having instant chemistry at a very high value position, I'm going to take it. And not many positions y'all really need either. I think offensive line on the interior could be a good position to go. That guard spot, Kenyon Green just hasn't been it, unfortunately. But regardless, maybe not taking a first round interior offensive lineman is the right move. But looking at it, like linebacker, I want to fix that over the long haul, even though I don't think it's a big liability. You could get some depth at safety there. This team's actually pretty damn solid. And with CJ Stroud hitting his stride, it's not a bad idea whatsoever. But at this spot, this is exactly where I wanted to take Dwight McLaughlin, and that's exactly where I'm going to. He is right here at number 23 on my board. Again, I use Max Melton as a placeholder, but since we have 3 rounds, I'm probably going to take Max Melton. We're going to use Shaw Smith-Wade as my placeholder for my beloved Dwight McLaughlin. It's weird how they don't have him in here because he's been a little bit banged up. I'll give him that, but he's still spectacular. When he comes back in, he's going to be spectacular. But for the Steelers at this point, we moved back. I was, still thinking we could go Kingsley Suamate at this point. And again, he has right tackle experience, and he's been getting better and better at left tackle. I think that's the right move because if I'm going to be honest, I feel like the Ravens are going to be looking for a tackle. And if not the Ravens, you could look at the Dolphins, could look at the Chiefs even looking to develop Kingsley Suamataia. So let's get that right tackle in there. And we got we got to move up from 4th to 3rd round as well. So stay tuned for that, Steelers fans. Pick number 27 for the Jaguars. We still have elite players on the board. The question is, who do I want to be my wide receiver on this team? You got Malik, you got Rome. I still have Johnny Wilson on the board too. I think Johnny would be a great player here. But Rome has been the true number 1 on his team. Malik is usually a combo with Brian Thomas. And I feel like Rome would be more of that true X that you're looking for. So all roads lead to Rome, and all roads are now leading to Jacksonville. So Rome is now in Jacksonville to be that number 1 wide receiver. Calvin Ridley just hasn't proven to be a number 1. It's unfortunate. I don't even know if he's going to be there. So there is certainly that aspect as well. But Rome Odunze is the selection at pick number 27. Pick number 28 for the Ravens. So looking at the DBs that are available, Nate Wiggins, he's probably, him and Josh Newton are the next best guys. But I really want to get Chop Robinson off the board, and Leatu Latu for that matter, and Braylon Trice for that matter, and every other damn player for that matter. But, I just don't want to have to wait till tomorrow to be able to draft some of these awesome players. I'm actually going to move up with the Panthers, though. And not for the guys I just talked about. But they're looking for a number 1 wide receiver, and I'm going to give it to them. We're trading probably, this is a shorter range trade as well. I feel like we could probably get away with sending 101 and seeing how that goes. So we are going to be sending that trade in. The Panthers move up, not for Chop Robinson, not for Malik Neighbors. They're looking for a true number 1 wide receiver who could be a superstar. And I'm going to go with my number 5 overall player here in Johnny Wilson. He fits so well as well because he's a bailout option for Bryce Young just to YOLO it. He's one of the best contested catchers, even though he does sometimes drop some very easy balls. He just surprisingly is unbelievably spectacular at catching those 50-50s. So good for him. And he's going to at least have an even more accurate quarterback now. So excited to see what Johnny can do. I don't feel like the options are really good for the Ravens at the moment. I just don't. But at number 29, could see a trade back here as well. We do have Malik Neighbors on the board. And I could see a team, actually there's not many teams. Maybe right here, we could see the Patriots, if they want to stick with Mac, end up getting Malik Neighbors. But they do kind of have a billion wide receivers that could be deep threats for that regard. But looking at the choices here, offensive line-wise, you do have Tyler Guyton to develop, but there's nothing that's exciting me except Jordan Morgan. And then you got Leatu Latu and Chop Robinson here. I'm actually moving up with the Chicago Bears. I talked about it earlier. Like, we ended up getting Marvin Harrison and Brock Bowers, and now we're going to get an elite edge rusher too. So we got all of these picks at our disposal. I just sent something very similar for a very similar range move. We're going to send a 4th-round pick to the Dolphins to move out, and we're getting Chop Robinson, baby. Bears masterclass. They end up getting Chop. They end up getting Garrett Bowles. They end up getting everything that you could ever want. So it's going to be kind of annoying drafting for the Bears because I'm kind of filling up every hole with pretty much amazing talent, but it is what it is. At pick number 30, the Niners could be looking just to pick up Leatu Latu at this point. Just the value is way too good. But I do think Tyler Guyton is worth taking a shot on. Top tier, high upside, right tackle. This team has a bum for a right tackle as it is, so kind of worth taking the shot on. And at pick number 31 for the Chiefs, we all know if Malik is on the board, I'm taking Malik. He is exactly what this team is looking for, especially for an MVS longer-term replacement. But, he's exactly what Mecole Hardman and MVS are kind of there to do combined. So amazing talent for that amazing fit. And then ending off the first round, we have the Eagles. And looking at the choices available, Howie is one to trade out. So I do have to put that out there. Like, we all know that. The next best guy who is on my board is actually number 10, Christian Haynes. And I don't see a team going to move up at the end of the first for a guard out of Connecticut, even though he's been an absolute baller. Looking at other guys, Braylon Trice is the next one. This is probably my most likely pick, him or Leatu Latu for the Eagles. Again, I do think Leatu Latu, he's extremely intriguing. And this is a spot where he probably would end up working. But we're seeing that even Nolan Smith's not getting really much time. He got his first sack, so woo-woo. But this might be a team that prioritizes, being able to equip themselves with, maybe some DB talent because, Eli Ricks is spectacular, but we don't want Mario Goodrich on the roster anymore. We don't want Josiah Scott on the roster anymore. Don't even get me started with that guy. But looking at other positions that are still available based on my board, we do still have some top tier safety work, but you have 2 years of that is available at your disposal. Wide receiver, one of those sneaky positions, man. One of those sneaky positions. And I honestly think Troy Franklin is a great choice for this. He has been nothing but spectacular there for Oregon, slicing and dicing every DB he goes up against. Just consistent, solid, and he's kind of exactly what you want in Olamide Zaccheaus, but going to be there for 5 years and can perform like a number 1 wide receiver. So I'm going to test this out. I have yet to go after Troy Franklin in the first round for a long time, and he's sitting right there at 25 on my board. So we're going to go Troy Franklin here to match the Chiefs. Say, you know what? You want to get an explosive player down the field? We're getting an explosive player down the field. And it's a good compliment for the Slim Reaper too. And we're going to end up going and drafting some extra edge rushers. Don't you worry, Eagles fans, but that's going to be today's video. Check out tomorrow for day 2. So that's rounds 2 and 3. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, but thank you so much for watching. See you on the far side. Peace.